Hello, everyone. And so I have an article here, and I was discussing on Twitter with some people about how they felt about the Lori Lawlin case. And then we came across this case as well. I know they're two different situations. And so that's a whole nother issue in it of itself altogether. But focusing on this, which is really sad, the feds declined charges against officers in Tamir Rice's case. And let me tell you why. Because the photo was in poor quality. And so I will read underneath this photo, the still image right here of what I've read. It says the file in this December 13, 2020 file photo, memorial of Tamir Rice is seen at a base of the General Robert E. Lee statue is seen Sunday, December 13, 2020 in Richmond, Virginia. The Justice Department announced Tuesday, December 29, 2020 that it would not bring federal charges against the two Cleveland police officers in the 2014 killing of 12-year-old boy Tamir Rice, saying video of the shooting was of too poor of a quality for the prosecutors to conclusively establish what had happened. That is the reason why they are not bringing charges against these officers, and it's really sad. I feel it's cop out. It's just an excuse to let the officers go. And so these are some other still photos. I believe that might be the mother of Tamir Rice, which I believe she is, the mother of Tamir Rice. And so it's just really sad because too many of these shootings have happened, like way too many. And this 12-year-old boy, he was playing with a toy gun at a park. Someone called and said that they thought he had a weapon, a real live weapon. And so they didn't even actually go over there to see if it was an actual weapon. And here he is, a 12-year-old child, and he was playing with a toy gun. So Michael Balsamo and Eric Tucker. So this is an article, I guess Washington Associated Press, the Justice Department announced, basically it's going to say the same thing, that Tuesday, that it's not going to bring federal criminal charges against the two Cleveland officers of the 2014 killing of Tamir Rice, who is 12 years old, saying the shooting of that video was in too poor of quality for prosecutors to conclusively establish what had happened. So in closing the case, which that's what they wanted to do in the beginning, is close the case, because everybody's on to all these other shootings and all these other tragedies, that now they feel that they can just close it because there's been a lot of other cases that have been either exonerated, or they've closed them, or they let people walk or let them go. And so they're going to do this the same way. And so this is a time that we're living in where we are looking at, hearing, and seeing people do evil. I call it like it is. It's unjust. So it goes on to say that into the high-profile shooting that helped galvanize the Black Lives Matter movement, that became part of the national dialogue about police use of force against minorities, including children as well, minority children. So the decision, revealed in a lengthy statement, does not condone the officers' actions, but rather says the cumulative evidence was not enough to support for a federal criminal civil rights prosecution. So Tamir was playing with a pellet gun outside of a recreation center in Cleveland, November the 22nd, 2014. How many kids have done that aren't black? So I've seen that with other little kids, and these things don't happen. So when he was shot and killed by the officer Timothy Loheman, who is white, seconds after Loheman and his partner, Officer Frank Garmback, arrived at the scene. The officers were called to the recreation center after a man drinking beer was waiting for the bus, called 911 to report a guy was pointing a gun at people. So the caller told 911 dispatcher that it was probably a juvenile and the gun might be fake. Okay, so even though the person turned around and said that it was a juvenile and the gun might be fake, they still didn't bother to check on that. They went ahead and then did what we're going to hear here, though, that the information was never relayed to the officers. And there's a problem with that. Even with the officers, they seen it was a child. It's not a teenager. It wasn't a man. You can tell it's a 12-year-old. It's a little boy. So they bring to bring the federal and civil rights charges in cases like these. The Justice Department must prove that the officer's actions willfully broke the law rather than being the result of a mistake, negligence, and bad judgment. Which all of that is what happened. It was negligence, bad judgments, and I believe it was some other things too. So I'm not going to say that, but it has been a consistently tough burden for federal prosecutors to meet across both Democratic and Republican administrations, with Justice Department declining criminal charges against police officers and other high-profile cases in recent years, including in the deaths of Eric Garner in New York and Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. So, in statement, Subda Chandra, an attorney of the boy's family, said that the Justice Department process was tainted. Okay, so there you have it, and the family has demanded prosecutors provide additional information about recommendations made during this probe that took place. So it's beyond comprehensible that the department couldn't recognize that an officer who claims he had shouted commands when the patrol car window was closed, and it was a winter day. It is a winter day and is lying. That is lying, Chandra said. So Rice's family has been cheated of a fair process yet again. So I believe this case has come up more than one time, of course. So in the case, the Justice Department said the poor quality of surveillance video in the area where the shooting had took place prevented the prosecutors from being able to conclusively determine whether Rice was or was not reaching for his toy gun just prior to being shot. So the two officers who were investigated told authorities soon after that the shooting that Rice was reaching for his toy weapon prior to being shot and was given multiple commands to show his hands. He's 12 years old. Okay, mind you, even though he would have, think about it, a 12-year-old kid who's never had any police encounters, and you got these police car rolling up and they're telling you to show your hands, and who knows what was in the mind of that little kid. It could have been fear. Maybe he could have thought it was a game. Who knows? So the video reviewed by the federal prosecutors makes the sequence of the events less clear. So the grainy time-lapse video, which has no audio and does not show detail or perspective, and the camera's view is obstructed by a police patrol car, prosecutors said. So in addition, they said, though, that the positioning of the boy's arms suggests that they were in the vicinity of his waist. His hands are not visible in the video, and it cannot be determined from the video what he was doing. So the Justice Department says that 7 use of force experts, 3 retained by the family, and 4 by the local authorities reviewed the recording, but the poor quality of the video on which they relied and their conflicting opinions added little to the case. So the experts used by the family said that the shooting was unreasonable, while the 4 others said that it was reasonable. Okay, so there's a back and forth thing going on here. So the New York Times reported in October that the department had effectively shut down the investigation. But Tuesday's announcement makes it official, so now it's closed for good. So inconsistent witnesses' statements also complicated any prosecution, and neither person said that they saw exactly what Rice was doing just before the shooting, according to the Justice Department. So, in a statement, at the scene of 3 other law enforcement officers, Lowenman repeatedly and consistently stated that Tamir was reaching for a gun before he had shot him, prosecutors said. Both Lowenman and Garmbach also said in a statement after the shooting that Lowenman had given Tamir Rice multiple commands to show his hands before shooting, and both officers saw him reaching for the weapon. Prosecutors and Lowenman and Garmbach were the only 2 witnesses in the near vicinity of the shooting, of course, so you're only getting their side of the story. And so the Justice Department and the other people, they're probably afraid to say anything. So the Justice Department also investigated whether the officers obstructed justice in statements that they made to the other investigators soon after the shooting. So prosecutors concluded that though the statements included some different language, that they were generally consistent. So since there was not enough evidence to prove the statements were untrue, there was also not enough evidence to prove that the officers sought to mislead investigators or to obstruct the probe into their actions. So this article basically came out, and I'm sure there's other articles, but this is really sad because this child died while playing with a toy gun in a recreation park, because someone made a phone call and they said it looked like he was holding a gun and pointing it at people. And now he's dead. And the officers are able to free to walk based on a video saying that it's not enough evidence. You hear how I'm saying this? A video that's not really, that they claim is grainy or it's not showing enough. After all this time has gone by since 2014, probably by now the video is going to show kind of grainy because they waited on this. That's one thing. And the other thing is they wanted to close this case probably when it started because they didn't care. And so that's the way I'm looking at it, and he's a 12-year-old child in a park, a recreation park, playing with a toy gun. I know by now a lot of parents are not going to buy toy guns, especially parents that have children that are of color, because they know that this is what could happen. But I've seen other kids with, air guns, with water guns at the beach, and this type of thing doesn't happen. And even if the gun is painted a certain color, still I've seen kids with guns that look like it could be real, and it is not real, I realize. And usually what they do is they try to paint the tip of it orange or another color. They used to not do that. It used to look like it was a real gun, and you can go to the 99-cent store and get toy guns still. And they look somewhat semi-real, but in a way you can see it's plastic. This is a 12-year-old child. I mean, what has been going on lately? A lot of people have been calling the police just at random on Black people for doing like any little thing. And so this is yet again, this is a loss of life. And now this mother has to live with this. And these officers, they're walking free. And so what happens when they do this again? Is it going to be the same story? So I just wanted to mention that. I think this is unfair. It's unjust. And, people are ready for 2020 to end. They say 2020 is the bad year. It's the dark year. But I would believe that from seeing all of the killing and the things that are still happening consistently, that it's not over with yet. And then hearing about, a lot of host of things, 1 minute they dance around the idea that they're going to send checks to all of the people that need money. Then they switch up and they say they're going to send 600, and they say then 2,000, then they walk that back because somebody's blocking it, which is Mitch McConnell. And now we're hearing about these things right here. Oh, they slide this in here. Then they talk about Lori Loughlin only spending 2 months in prison, which she really got the royal treatment. Let's just be clear here. She's celebrity status. So she gets to get out and get her life back and her plush life and her identity. And they might even give her shows. She might even get shows. She's going to get an award because she spent 2 months in hardcore prison. No, it wasn't hardcore. She wasn't in general population. People who are doing time, R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, people who have done time and they haven't, they have not gotten the royal treatment. Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela. There has been a whole Mystical just barely got out. He just barely got out, and it come to find out that I believe that the case on him was dropped, and he had to spend not 2 months, but he spent several years in prison on a rape charge. That turns out that I believe they dropped that case because it wasn't enough evidence on that. But he didn't spend 2 months. There's so many black people, even when they're celebrities, or celebrity status, they don't get the royal treatment. And so let's make that clear here. And then there's been a whole spate of shootings that always seem to involve an officer and a black person or black children, and somehow they're able to walk scot-free, the officers. And there's some kind of technicality. There wasn't enough evidence, or they thought he had a gun, or they feared for their life, and somehow the evidence is skewed, and these officers are allowed to walk free. And so we are at the end of 2020. Basically, 2020 is over with just about, and we're still in the middle of this. Just like they said that we're in the middle of deadly times with COVID, and because of the holidays, well, we're also dealing with more than just one pandemic. We're dealing with epidemics and pandemics on top of what we're dealing with here. It is the main pandemic of COVID, but we're dealing with racism, there's violence, there's homelessness, there's the possibility of eviction for like a tsunami of evictions for millions of people. And then with them wavering back and forth on the stimulus, we don't know when that's coming, if it comes, and we don't know what it's going to look like. And then on top of that, $600 is not going to pay your rent. Let me tell you, I don't know of any place that's going to be $600. And then by the time you get through, you have to eat, you have to, put gas in your car, you have a car note, you have auto insurance, you have what a lot of people got to change their tags by the end of the year or the beginning of the next, and so that's going to be some money. And so they're playing with us. And then you got small businesses who are struggling to stay and keep the doors open. First they feed them all this BS about, okay, you guys can have eating outdoors. Now they can't even do that. And then they threaten to close their businesses on top of that. And then they tell them, okay, you can't work, but the bills keep coming. The bills keep coming. Did you see what happened to the guy in Covina with his restaurant? The health department comes, or whoever the department, they want to close his business and fine him $500, which he's probably been fined twice, maybe more than that. But the man is struggling. He can't pay his employees. He's got a car note. He's got a house note. He's going to be homeless. Maybe he won't be homeless, but he's going to be suffering. His business is going to close. He's going to have to rethink what he's going to do. He can't pay his employees. So the small business owners are suffering. So some of the places that you want to enjoy, you can't even enjoy it anymore because they want you to stay stuck in the house. And now we got to look at this right here. While you're trapped in your abode, you got to look at the unjust and unfair treatment that black people are getting all over America, that they're getting killed at the hands of law enforcement. Law enforcement is supposed to be protect and serve the communities. The communities in which they serve do not trust them because we have an epidemic of racism in the police departments, where they're going around and they're killing black people, innocent black people who haven't done nothing to anyone. And your life is taken all over a technicality or over a phone call, as simple as a phone call, somebody on hearsay. Hearsay, that's what that is. Hearsay, they can't criminalize, they can't penalize, only in the condition that they look at it from their standpoint of view. But when it comes to black folks, if it's hearsay, we heard that you had a gun. We heard that you were pointing a gun at people. We heard that we were fearing for our life, and we heard that you were reaching in your wallet. We saw you reaching in your wallet. They tell you to get your ID, and you reach in there and they shoot you. They tell you to put your hands up. If you put your hands up, then they're going to still say you got something, and they feared for their life, and they're going to shoot you. What are you supposed to do? And so this is the kind of stuff that we're looking at. And so already, today is the 29th of December. We're already, 2020 is all basically done. This right here is wrong. I'm saying this. It's wrong. It's unjust. It's unfair. And it's not right. And this is not justice at all. And that mother, I feel really bad for her. It's just like what happened with the Breonna Taylor situation. They do nothing. They do nothing, and then they sit back, and those people can go on with their life. They can live their life. They can see their family and their grandchildren and grow up in a world where they don't have to fear about getting shot by the police on a technicality or on a phone, something as simple as a phone call, or they don't have to worry about mistaken identity and being thrown in jail, and then you got days of your life or maybe years of your life taken away all because of a mistake. Somehow you look like the perpetrator, which they're come to find out they may not even be any perpetrator. You're just blamed for something you didn't even do. And so this is not cool here at all. So I just wanted to put that out there. So yeah, this is a video. It's very frustrating. It's angering. Nobody should be happy right now after seeing something like this. Could be your brother. This could be your son. This could be your nephew. This could be your cousin. This could be your baby. They shot. And this is what law does to black people. This is what they do to us. So anyway, I'm going to let this go. It's just disgusting to see stuff like this over and over again.